Okay, I hope you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Yep. Yes, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining. Today we are in session number 4 of ABAP on HANA. So we would be quickly going through the agenda for today's session, and then we would be starting with the practicals. So let's just quickly go through what we are going to cover in this particular session. So definitely what we do have on our plate for as an agenda for today is a CDS, the core data service. But before we jump onto the CDS, what we would like to do is we would like to complete few of the topics, very minor one, which we have left because we don't want to stretch and we just want to stay more focused on what we are learning. Okay. So what we are currently going to cover is, so mostly in earlier session, we have covered all the Java type syntax, group by, mesh operations and everything. What we are left over here is certain minor keywords called nmax, nmean, the importance of with empty key with default key, certain conversion aspects like conversion casting, how it can be handled via new ABAP syntaxes, the lossless operator, the oops keyword handling. So how the object oriented would behave and how we would be using it when it comes to new ABAP. That is something we would be learning. And last but not the least, CL ABAP corresponding. After having this covered, we would be jumping on to the next ABAP on HANA artifact called core data services. Okay. So the core data services, what is it? What type of CDS are there? How we can figure out what kind of what all CDS are there into the system? And before jumping onto all of them, how we can make sure that we do have our system which is ready to use for the development of a core data service. That is something we would be seeing in this particular session. Going forward, we would also be learning and creating certain sample CDS called parameterized and non-parameterized CDS, and we would be exposing those as an OData service. Now, when we say OData service, it would be built on top of a REST API architecture. So that is something we would also be learning. We would be learning the whole architecture, how the REST API looks alike, why it is required, what would happen if REST API is not there, what things would stop working. Okay, so those are all the things that we would be seeing. Before that, let's just quickly go through what we did in the earlier session and cover the topics that we just discussed. I'll just say, just log in. So in the earlier session, mainly we were focusing on to cover the Java kind of syntaxes, we can say. So if I just go into this particular program, what we learn is we learn that nowadays ABAP is also very much compatible and would help you having the shorthand operators, the looping mechanism written as that of the Java. So we learn the shorthand operators over here. We know that, okay, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, all of those can be handled. The translation keyword, we also learned that rather than going with the English keyword base, it would be a built-in function-based translation approach that we can follow, and using which we can also do the translation, do the comparison at the same time. Next thing we learned was the looping part. So we learned the for, while, for, then, until. Okay, so this two kind of loop we learned where we understood that, okay, one is a approach, for while is following a positive approach, and for until is following a negative approach. Then is an optional. It would by default be initialization operator plus one if you are not overriding it with something else. Then we learn the reduce operator, with the help of which we are able to reduce the amount of data and come to an analytical conclusion. Suppose that we learn a very important keyword called group by. As a part of a group by, we learn that if you want to group the data based on certain component, like here we tried grouping the data based on a document type and company code, then definitely it's very easy and we can do that. Okay, and we had a reference which would give us the reference of that particular set of the data. And to loop on that particular group, we learn one more keyword called for in group. The older way of doing the same would be the loop at group. So we can use either of them, whichever we feel comfortable using. Okay. Suppose that we learn some sort of mesh operation. as a part of mesh operation, what we learn is we can have multiple set of data correlated with each other, or in terms of a mesh, we can say associated with each other. So when they are associated with each other, using the reference of one, we can perform an operation on another one. So, but the prerequisite for a mesh structure to be built is that both the structures, or we can say table that we are using, should be a shorted table, and they should have some sort of key definition. So we define a purchase order header data with unique key and line item data with non-unique key, EBLN, and we created a structure. We learn also one more keyword called corresponding, as a part of which at the time of moving the data, we can also ensure that the duplicates are also getting discarded. Suppose that we also learn certain operation on a mesh called forward association, inverse association, the deletion operations. Okay. So forward association, it means using the header set of data, we would be able to read the line item data. Here we would be using a slash along with the name of the association. In case of inverse association, we would again be going with the name of association. Here our set of input would be the reference to the line item, and based on which we would be reading the header data via association and not directly. If you want to perform any sort of deletion, if it is one-to-one, we can go with the delete table. Else we can also give with the delete one-to-many, then we can go with the delete keyword directly. If we are going with delete keyword, definitely it would be one-to-one. But if you see with the header reference, we are trying to delete the line item information. Okay, so it would be an association-based deletion operation that we learn. Now, next thing that we would be focusing over here in today's session would be certain important built-in functions, I can say. Now, 1 second. Yes, we are over here. Now, as we are over here, let's just try to learn one function called, let's just say, nmax and nmean. What does the name suggest? What the nmax and nmean would be doing over here? Okay, so as the name suggests, the purpose of function would also be around the same direction. So when I say nmax and nmean, what we would be doing? We would be trying to figure out the maximum and minimum value out of it. For example, when I just say I'm trying to figure out the nmax, I'm doing the inline declaration over here. When I say nmax over here, and if I just add a round bracket, if I just say control space, if you see, it can accept 1 to 9 number of input values. So I'll just say value equal to, let's just say my first value can be 10. Second value I am trying to insert over here is 7. Third one value I am trying to pass over here is, let's just say 78. And when I just say I want to figure out the maximum value, it would give me the maximum value out of the group. Okay. So we would say, why do we need a built-in function for this? This is very simple thing. So definitely it's a simple thing, but as soon as the list gets growing, it would become very hard for us to identify which is the longest, or we can say hardest value, or we can say maximum or minimum value. So we have to compare value 1 with value 2, 3, and all others. Likewise, we have to keep on comparing each of the values, and then we would be able to figure out which is the maximum and minimum value. So if you visualize the if, else, the when, case, all the statements that we are comparing, then it would be a huge list that we are going through. Okay, and that is why we do have an nmax and nmin function. Many a times while doing a simple calculation also, if we can save the time, then of course it would be big benefit while executing the set of information, because it would ultimately help us improving the performance of our program. Same way, we do have one more simplest function called nmin. Here we would have the same set of information as an input. For example, you can have a variables as well. That is also totally fine. This is just for examples perspective that I am using a fixed values. So here, let's just say I am going with n mean. So it would try to give me the minimum values out of that. So if I just execute, it would give me that 78 is the value which is the maximum out of the bunch, and 7 is the value which is minimum out of the bunch which I am trying to pass. And at a time, I can expect that I can have 9 possible values being passed as an input. So if I just open over here, you would be getting the documentation also for the same. So you are ultimately trying to reduce the evaluation. Okay, so this set of evaluation, if you are going through, then you have to write 9 such evaluations. And if you do have, let's just say, more than 9 values, then you can also think of you are trying to evaluate a bunch first, then second bunch, and that bunch also you can use over here. For example, you again want to identify, okay, n max out of 7 n, I can say, yeah, value 1 equal to 8 and value 2 equal to 9. And if you again want to go within this group, then of course it is very much possible. Then we would be able to go in that direction as well. So system would get the maximum out of this, and this chain would go on and on. So likewise, we can have the output. So this is the simplest function. Likewise, we have few more such functions which help us doing the trick for us. For example, let's just try considering one more important scenario. So we have a already known keyword called move corresponding. What is the purpose of move corresponding? It would move the data from one structure to another, from one table to another by matching the name of the columns. I can say for moving the data from one structure to another or from one table to another, and it would match the name of the column. But what would happen if I do have something where I don't have a such sort of correlation into the table column name? For example, if I just say I do have, for example, if I just say I do have my target destination structure which I am defining on mesh, I just want, and here I have let's just say PO, and whose name type is EKKO-EBLN over here, and then I have company code where my type is EKKO-BUKRS. For example, I do have a document type over here whose type is okay, let's just go with 3 for now. Now, let's just say I have a set of data also prepared with me, which says that I want some sort of data EBLN, BUKRS, BSART. Okay, and I'll just say up to 1000 rows. Now consider that I am not writing the select query over here, but I do already have some source of data which is in this format, and I want to move it to the destination format like this. And the name of the table over here is mentioned as just say LT dest type standard table of TYDEST. Now, if I want to move the data from these columns to this set of columns, then can I use move corresponding? Can I write like move corresponding LT source to LTDEST? And if I just try printing the table, then you would get that I am not having any sort of data being presented in my output. Reason is that I don't have any sort of data being presented in LTDEST because I'm trying to move corresponding, but the column names are not matching. So I'll just say, okay, in that case, let's just say I won't use this, but instead I'll use LTDEST equal to corresponding that we learned in the earlier session. Okay. And if you try using this, if you also want to discard the duplicate, then also it is totally fine, but it won't also help over here. Because again, in this case as well, I don't have the name of the column matching. So it means the corresponding only works when I do have matching column name. If I also want to move the data when the column names are not matching at that particular point in time, we have one more utility called CLABAP corresponding. So this CLABAP corresponding is something that we would be using for moving the data from one set of internal table to another set. Okay. And for that, ideally, if I just say I don't have a utility, but I want to do such sort of operation, then what I might be doing as a software developer, what I might have think of is that if I do have a set of columns listed like this, I do have a set of column listed like this, then by any means, I should be able to do a set of mapping. By any means, I should be able to define that EBLN's value should be going in PO, this should be mapped to this. So ultimately, what we might have done if we are developing our own utility would be to create some sort of mapping object. That mapping object that we would be creating would contain the relation of source and destination columns, and that mapping object we would be using while actual movement occurs. Okay. So same way, CLABAP corresponding is working on the same direction. Even though the column names are different, it is asking you to perform one more pre-step before doing the actual movement of the data. It would say, just give me the mapping of the source and target column. I would keep it stored, and whenever in future you want to move the data, I would help you out with the movement. So what we would need over here is a mapping object. This mapping object says CLABAP corresponding, that is the name of the utility. Here we would say create. So when we say CLABAP corresponding underscore create, it would create a mapping object. If I just say control space, enter, it would ask you for three things. First thing it would ask you for is what is the source from where actually you want to move the data. So I'll just say move the data from LT source over here to the destination table. This destination table is known as a LT dest. Like we had a discard duplicate option over here in corresponding, we also have that option. So while doing the mapping also, if you want to establish, or we can say give the provision of discarding the duplicate values while movement, that is also very much possible. Now, I say a mapping that you have, then you have to define the mapping of a source column with that of the target column. Okay. So what should I pass here as an input? So if I just go inside the create, here you would be finding that I do have a mapping. The type of mapping is called mapping table. If I just open this, again, if I just try to open the type that is defined, it is saying me mapping info. This mapping info is coming with 4 set of parameters called value, kind, source name, and destination name. Let's just understand the fields, that what is something that we should be passing. First thing is very clear that this is a structure, but the field which is mapped is a type standard table of that. It means as an input, whatever we would be passing to the mapping field would be a table, not a structure. It means for each and every field, we have to pass some sort of mapping information. What that mapping information should be containing? It should contain this 4 field. Source name, it means the source column from where the data should be flow. So I can say EBLN would be my source and my destination would be PO. BUKRS would be my source and company code would be my destination. That is clear. When I say a level, it means it's a hierarchical level. Let's just say I am on a flat structure, then 0 would be my hierarchical level. If I am having a structure where on an initial level I do have a header data, so hierarchical level would be 0 for that. If I am going one more step deeper where I do have a company code information which is containing again some sort of short text and everything, then that hierarchical level would become 1. Likewise, we can specify the level over here. Third thing is a kind. Kind is the type of movement that we want to occur into the system. So when I say a kind, it would say if it is 1, then it means it would give you the movement of the data if the name of the columns are matching. Or sorry, if I can say the kind is 1, it means it would follow the mapping that you are specifying in the source name and destination name. When you are specifying kind equal to 2, it means if the name of source and target destination name you are specifying, it would follow. But in case the system is finding any field with the exact matching name in the destination structure, then it might plan to override the same. So let's just don't go into too much of theoretical. Let's just try to experience the thing practically, then it would become more clear. So I'll just say, I'll just go one more step back. Here I'll just say how I can create a table. So many a time we have done that already. So I can say value over here because I want to fill the value of the table, but I don't want to define it separately. So let's just go by a newer way of writing a code. I can say CL abap corresponding. And here I'll just say mapping table because I do have a left hand side variable. I do have a right hand side value and the data type. And here I'll just specify the list of columns I have to specify. So here I'll just say level equal to 0. Then I can say kind equal to, as I say, let's just go with 1 for now. What would be my source? It would be EBLN. And what would be my destination name? It would be, I can say PO 3. So I can say another one which I would be having over here is BUKRS. Another one I would be having over here is called BSART. And here I can say where the input would be passed. So it would be company code and doc type. So I can say company code over here and it would be doc type over here. So what we just did over here is we defined the mapping. We just defined the mapping. Okay. It won't do the movement of the data in reality. To perform any sort of movement of the data, we have to use this mapping object that we created. I can say LV or mapping object. And in your program, let's just say you have already defined a mapping and now you want to perform the movement n number of times. You can always call the execute method. As a part of this execute method, all you have to do is you have to specify the LT source and the destination over here. Okay, and the moment you say execute, it would move the data. So how the system is doing that? Let's just try to check that as well. If I just open execute, if you see how it is doing the execution, it is doing this execution by some sort of kernel module. So when I say it's doing this by some sort of kernel module, it means this code is getting executed on a kernel level of an application server. And that is why we can expect it to be highly faster. Okay. The kernel, it means it would be the operating system level where whole this SAP architecture is built. So maybe it would be somewhere at the C++ level on based on which this whole SAP is built. If I just say execute, now you would find that my data is moved from EBLN to PO, BUKRS to company code, BSART to document type. So it would do the movement. Now, let's just go one more step forward. Try to specify one more field over here. When I say move corresponding, okay, when I say move corresponding, it means the system would move the data correspondingly while the column name is matching. But here we have specified mapping object. Then what would happen if the name of the column in the destination structure is also same? So let's just say I do have a PO field over here, but I also do have EBLN over here. It says EKKO EBLN. So let's just say I do have two fields, one with name PO, one with name EBLN, and this EBLN is also there as part of destination structure. If I just say activate, if I say execute, here if you see the CL above corresponding kind 1 is specifying, or we can say it is executing the movement in a way that if the movement if during the movement the system finds any column with the name matching, then it would do the stuff. And if you want to do any sort of movement over and above that, if the column names are not matching and still if you want to do the movement, then in that case you can go with EBLN PO like this. Okay, if you specify kind as 2 over here, for example, and I say execute, here if you see, the system has ignored this column. The system has ignored both of the column. It is not doing the movement. If I just go one more step back, if I just try commenting this column, then also the movement won't happen. So what the system is trying to do is, if you are trying to specify kind as a 2, it means it's your responsibility to do the movement of the data. The system won't do the movement for you. Okay, and that is why this kind is there, but most of the time the kind that you would be using over here would be 1, because all you want to do is you want to do the movement of the data whenever the name is matching or the mapping that you have specified is turning into true. So for that, the kind that we would be using over here would be 1. So ultimate goal that why we are over here is to have a functionality of moving the data from source to destination, even though the column name is not matching. And that is something that we can achieve by using CLABAP corresponding. So let's just say I have 50 more line of code over here. I have defined this mapping object at very beginning, and during this execution, I want to do the movement 5 more times. Then also it is very much possible. We can do that definitely. Okay. So this is how the CLABAP corresponding would work. Is it clear to everyone, or if there is any question, maybe you can unmute and we can discuss.
Yeah, Sumit, Praveen here.
Yeah, Praveen, tell me.
Yeah, this is clear for me. I had one more doubt actually.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So, how do we normally we are using is not initial, right, for any internal table which is filled with value or not.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, but when we are doing this value functionality, if we want to check if it is not initial, so it is. So what we had seen last time, line underscore exists. The same thing we have to use, or is there anything else for is not initial as well?
Okay. First, the value syntax and is not initial. Like what sort of behavior you are trying to achieve first. So let's just say you want to loop onto something and you only want to pass the value where the value is not initial. Is
Not
it kind
initial.
of
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
okay? So what you can do in that case, so let's just say you want to pass the data over here. For example, LT_dest equal to value hash. This is one more way of moving the data that of course we have learned earlier.
Exactly. Yeah. For
LS source over here in LT source, where I can say PUKRS is not initial.
Okay, so we can directly use it. Okay.
It's same thing, just the
Okay.
structure is differing.
Okay.
Anyone else having any questions?
Yeah, and one more thing.
Yeah,
We
please.
normally we have for all entries, right? When we are
Yeah.
looking, for example, if there is EKKO table and EKPO table, and we
Hmm.
are doing for all entries. Sometimes there is mismatch in data type, right? When we are doing for all entries.
Hmm.
For
So
example,
first
yeah,
of all, for all entries in is a database level keyword.
yeah,
Okay. And while you are on HANA, the best
yeah,
practice that we should always be following is avoid for all entries in and always go with joins. Because if
yeah,
you remember in initial days, you had one question that how the queries are jumping from server to server. So if I
yeah,
do have um, a statement over here, let's just say I do have a clear statement where I'm clearing my LT table and now I'm writing a select query. So this LT table clearing would happen on my application server. Now I'm writing a select query, which is giving me, let's just say LT EKKO as my data. And this is on my database server. But the moment this statement gets executed, application server would get the data in LT EKKO. Again, I'm going into my select of LT EKPO where move all for all entries in LTEKKO are there, then this it would again jump onto database server and get you the data on application server. Instead, if you directly write the joins between both of this table, then whole execution of comparing the columns and fetching you the matching data would happen on database server instead. So here this movement can be reduced to just this single one. This whole iteration can be reduced by the means. Okay, and
okay,
these joins can be n number of, so there can be n number of joins. Definitely at ABAP level, we say that okay, it's good to only have to 5 to 7 number of joins, but if you specify 30 to 31 number of joins, then also it would perform efficiently. For all
okay,
entries in has an overhead. It seems like you are only passing the input, but what the system is doing internally is it is fetching all the data. After fetching all the set of data, after fetching all the set of data, it would try to match the data with the for all entries in. So that is a kind of application server level execution. It's some sort of application server level execution it is doing. And that is not
okay,
something we need. And that is why
okay,
if you are going on HANA, I'll prefer go with the joins and not with
fine.
the for all entries in.
Okay, no. So there is no substitute as of like a new with using a new keyword. We can have a substitute of that code. Like for if there is a for all entries issue, we are
You can
getting an
use
error.
that. So for all entries in is there, but the point which you are mentioning is that if there is a
Data type
way,
sense. Yeah,
sorry, there is a way that if the data type are differing, can I directly write the select query?
yeah.
So currently there is no alternative available. All you
Alteration.
have to do
Yeah.
is
Okay.
yeah, you have to prepare a table where data type is matching and then go with the
Ah,
for all entries.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know, I know that pain point. I have also done that many a times.
Ah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So better way is to go with the joins.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, Sumit,
Yep.
Gaurav here.
Yeah, Gaurav.
Sumit, I did not understand that point when you added new column as a EBLN. Then why it was clearing those two fields value?
So that is the thing. So that EBLN I added
Mm-hmm.
over here, and here I specify kind as a 2. So 95% of the case would be that whenever you are defining a mapping object at that particular point in time, the source and destination table won't have the matching column over here. But if it does
Okay.
have a matching column, then what the system would do is it does two things at the same time. It follows the mapping rule that you specified first. Secondly, it also execute the move corresponding. It means if I do have a EBLN and PO both, it would move the data in both of them. So what you would like to do over here is you would like to take over the charge. You would say, okay, I'll do the mapping for such columns. So you would define kind as a 2. And if at the very moment you specified kind as a 2, the any movement from the source name EBLN would stop working. It would give you responsibility that you do the movement wherever you want to move the data. That's something that you would be taking the charge of. So
Okay.
this kind two is treating the system in a way that the moment you say kind two, it would define the mapping object, but it won't perform the movement. So
Okay.
that's why we would always be going with the kind one, where our mapping object would be given the honor to actually perform the movement.
Okay, understood.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Now let's just go one more step further. LT table, where I define LT table. Nice. Okay, I define it over here.
So like if you give two and there you are given UBL and PO for both in the output for both column the data will be there.
If I specify kind as a 1, then
No,
of
no,
course the
two.
data would. If I specify kind as a 2, it means for the
Mm.
source where EBLN is there, it won't perform any sort of data movement. So for both of the column, data movement won't happen. Right?
Okay, but if it is okay, we have to do that moment for that time.
Yeah. So many a times you might have certain columns and you want to fill those conditionally, because what happens is if you are working on the UI, that you might have interaction with your front end developer that if I am having this sort of condition, then I would send you the data only in this particular column cell, else I will send you into this. So you might have multiple alternative columns for the same set of output depending on the business scenario that you are having. And at that particular point in time, you want this automatic movement to stop, and instead conditionally you want to move the data. And for that, we don't have any sort of direct mechanism which can do that particular stuff for you. Okay. Okay. Yep. Now, next thing that we would be learning over here is very important. Certain conversion stuff that we would be learning first, and then we would also be going with a I can say the empty key and default key. So let's just learn the empty key and default key first. Now, I so whenever we are working with empty key and default key, just remember we would be seeing this scenario at 3 places with empty key. Okay, I'll mute all of you if you are not speaking, so you can unmute yourself whenever. Now, now the with empty key and default key, you would be seeing at multiple places. First place that you might have already faced is whenever you are working with a object oriented methods, okay, and you are defining a returning parameter, then you would find that uh, you would find that a returning parameter which I am defining should be fully typed. So when I say a parameter should be fully typed, what does it mean? It means it should have all the things very clear. Now, what a type should have? A type should have the list of columns, list of key combination, that what is the key based on which we want to perform this operation. So this is what a fully type is all about. It should have a list of columns specified. It should have a list of key combinations also specified. So in oops method, the returning parameter should have this. And this is something that we would be getting again in touch when we would be learning AMDP. And as a part of that, whenever we would be learning database function, here we would need this knowledge. So we can park this question till now, but we would need again fully typed variable whenever we are working with a returning parameter. Second place that you would also get this requirement is in whenever you are working with OData services, and I can say deep entities. Here also you would get that here we again need a fully typed data. So here we also require that we should only use the type where the type specification is very clear. Okay. Guys, just give me one moment, just a second. Sorry guys. Okay. So deep entities. So in few days you would be receiving also the recordings for OData session, and during that you would also learn what is a simple entity, plain entity, deep entities, and everything. So this deep entity would also need a fully tab. So this is something that I am talking about, which you currently, if you might have already experienced with, and you might have come across the scenario. If not, then you would be learning it in few days. Third is the generic type. When I say a generic type, it means that just say I'm defining an integer data type, I'm defining a string data type, or something which is very generic. It does not have any sort of data element or structure associated with it, but it's very generic. For example, I want to define a type where dt of I, for example, is a type standard table of I. So I am defining an internal table where the type of the data, or you can say type of the internal table, is integer. Now, if I do have such internal table and I want to initialize this, then what I might have done is I might define an internal table. I can just say, okay, lt of I equal to value keyword again, and here I can specify the tt of I, and here I can specify the list of columns. So as it is integer and the column name is not specified, I can directly say it's a 0. I can say it's a 2, 3, 4, 1, likewise, anything I can specify. So I do have this internal table specified with me. If I just do the syntax check, it says the value of generic structure tt of I can't be constructed. Why? Because it is very generic table that we are defining over here, and that is why the system is not able to perform the type generation for this. Here, if you want to go one more step further, what we can do instead is we can go with a key specification. So when I say a key specification, I can say with default key over here. So what we just did is, for us to use the value keyword over here,
Hello, Sumit. Hello.
yeah, sorry. Hello.
Sumit,
Hello.
are we audible?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Yeah. Maybe there was some issue.
So now we do have a type defined with us. We do have a type standard table of I, and then we do have a default key specified. So whenever we are using value keyword, the very first thing at that particular point in time, what we need is the type should be fully defined. The fully defined type is someone where the key definition is also very specific. Definitely we define the list of column that we would have only one column, but the key definition was not there. So what we did is we allowed SAP to do the key definition for us, and that's what SAP did. We do have alternative also over here. If I just comment this out, then we might also have space saved with empty key. So that is also working. Now let's just try to print the data. You can say LT of I into data, LS of I. And I'll just say activate and execute. So here I do have the set of data printed correctly with me. Now if I want to go one more step ahead and I want to sort this data, so I can say sort this particular set of data. And if I just say execute, then at this particular point in time, the data sorting over here, if you see, has not been done. It is just getting me the data in the format in which it is there. Right. Now, next thing if I want to do is, if I want to sort the data, then I have to do some sort of key definition. Currently, I have defined the key, but it is empty. It says the system does not have any sort of key. What I would do over here is I'll just say with default key over here. So system would do the default key mapping based on the set of data that we are providing in the input. If I just say activate here, now I am able to perform all the sorting, searching, reading mechanism. Any sort of behavior that we want to achieve, we can only achieve if we are having the default key definition specified as a part of that. That is what is the meaning of default key. Empty key, it means the structure that we are defining does not have any sort of key. And if key is not there, then normal operation that we can think of being performing on a internal table is not possible. Okay. For us to perform any sort of operation on a generic type, that is what currently we are focusing on. This is the topic that we would again focus on whenever we are coming with a OOPS method. Okay. So these two flavors, it means whenever we do have a specific key definition specified at that particular point in time, we would be able to perform any operation. If not, then we won't be able to. And for that, we need a with default key, which gives a key definition. And that is why SAP give us this option. In earlier days, we used to specify the key values that, okay, this is my key. I do have 5 columns of, I have a table with a 5 columns in it. I can specify, okay, EBLN is my with unique key. Like that is something we used to specify. But here, SAP would be doing that thing for us. All we have to use is a right set of keyword. Okay. And this would happen even if I am on with integer or a string or any sort of generic data. Okay.
If we declare
Perfect.
like types and we can specify there
Sorry.
structure. I mean, if we create like types, begin of end of type.
Uh-huh.
So, if we have a bill and company code, like the
Mm-hmm.
data structure, we can that structure we can mention there instead of
So
I.
yeah, you can, but the main point over here is why we need this with default key is when we are with a generic type. Generic, it means it is a very built-in data types that
Okay.
we are using. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
For EBLN and everything, definitely we are not specifying the key, still we are able to perform the sorting and everything, right? That is
Mm-hmm.
possible.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
Okay, guys. Just give me one more second. I'm sorry for that. Okay, nice. Next thing that we would be going over here is we would be learning certain important keywords over here. So conversion, casting, what is that? The exit, the lossless operator, what is that? That is something we would be seeing that over here. So by the name itself, you would be able to correlate what is a conversion and casting. What is a conversion? So when I say I am doing a conversion, it means I am trying to convert one set of data to another. So I am trying to convert, let's just say a string to an integer, integer to a string, or any sort of conversion I want to perform. That is something I am doing over here. That is the meaning of a conversion. When I say casting, it means I am trying to cast something. I am trying to cast an object oriented data type. So conversion is a data type conversion for primitive data types. And casting is again a conversion for object oriented data type. So when I say a conversion, it means, let's just say I want to convert from integer to string. Let's just say I do have an integer, I do have a mathematical calculation which I am doing, and I want to get some sort of exact values out of that. Then that is also being considered as a casting. Sorry, as a conversion. But here I am willing to have the exact values out of that. Okay. So let's just see, for example, I do have a data specified. For example, I do have a data type which says char 30, and whose value I can expect to come also in char 30. Okay, and I do have a value called LV number, and here I do have a 1. Okay, so what I can expect is whenever I pass this number over here from this to char 30, LV char 30 equal to LV number. So here if you see, I am getting this value being converted into a char 30. Okay. But many a times what we want is an exact conversion of data. Okay. We might use for exact conversion of data. Many a times if you want to go with a specific user signature, saying, okay, if I do have a number which is having a comma separator as a thousand separator and dot as a decimal separator, then we write to, okay, for a number to character conversion. But many a times the conversion might not be that simple. For that, all we want is we want a conversion function over here which says convert hash over here. And at this particular point in time, the value should be converted to a conv. So this is the exact number that we are seeing, that this number would be converted to that particular point in time. If you want some sort of date conversion, so ultimately this conversion operation which I'm specifying might be bit of hard to understand. Let me just take an example which would become more sense instead. For example, many a times the arithmetic operations, for example, that we are performing might intake some sort of automatic rounding. For example, if I say I am dividing a value 1 divided by 7 over here at that particular point in time, I want to check whether it is greater than 0 or not. Just a second, guys. There is some network issue which I am incurring. Just a second. Really sorry, guys, for the interruption. Sorry. So over here, let's just say I want to say if 1 divided by 7, what I can think of, what would be the output? So my output would be any sort of random value, let's just say 0.13, any sort of random hypothetical values I'm printing. But when I say this is my value of 1 divided by 7, and if I just say put a breakpoint over here, else I am just saying the breakpoint over here. So if 1 divided by 7, I am getting over here. If it is greater than 0, definitely it is. But when I say execute, if you see, I am getting a breakpoint over here. Why is that so? Because mathematically, 1 divided by 7 has one numerator 1 denominator, both are integer. So what should be my output data type? I have not specified it anywhere. So what the system would do is it would try to convert the set of data. It would try to convert the set of data in the input, in the form of input that we are providing. So it would try to again convert it to integer. That is not right. If we are dividing something, then what we can expect is the output format should be in a manner that does not give us any sort of loss of data. Okay, and for that, what we can have over here is we can say, give me the conversion of this data while converting into a some sort of decimal, let's just say. So I can say decimal float, for example, 34. So it's a kind of a total length and 4 number of decimals. So I want to convert this data into a decimal number. So even though numerator and denominator are integer, I want the final output data to be a decimal. When I say execute, here if you see, this particular set of information would now be converted into something which is acceptable, or I can say which is now rounded off to decimal. Okay, earlier it used to be integer, this integer got converted into decimal float, and that is the value that we would be getting over here. So we can get the exact output. So right hand side variable, whatever is the data type, on the left hand side, if you want to convert it to whatever data type, all we have to do is we have to specify the convert keyword along with the data type to which we want the output data to be in form of, and we would be able to get the set of data in that particular set of format. So that is the meaning of conversion. One more level, if you just go over here, I'll just park the casting for now. But if you see, I'm going one more step deeper, and I am trying to achieve some sort of a conversion, and that conversion I want in a form of a without loss. So for example, I am trying to introduce you to one more keyword called exit. What is it? Exit is also something which is rotating around that of the mathematical formulas. Okay, what the system says, or we can say what the keyword says, it says while doing any sort of mathematical operations, if system detect any sort of loss of data, then it would trigger an alarm, it would trigger an exception. If I just say that a divided by b equal to c, okay, then the value of my a would be b into c. This is true if I am saying 5 divided by 2 equal to 2.5, but 5 divided by 2 equal to 2.5, then of course I know that 5 equal to 2.5 into 2. So it means I am not losing any sort of data. But when I say that 1 divided by 3 equal to 0.333, it means when I say 0.333 into 3, will I get 1? Actually, no. I would get 0.9999. It means I am losing that 0.01 somewhere. And when I say I am losing that 0.01 somewhere, it is a loss of data. If it is just 0.01 a number, I would be less worried. But in real world, in a SAP, we are not always dealing with numbers. We are dealing with currencies. We are dealing with amounts. We are dealing with dollars, euros, everything. So a loss of 0.01 is also a big loss. So when you are thinking of a purchase order in which I do have a conditions maintained, I do have a sales order in which I also do have the mathematical operations wherever it is occurring. If there is any sort of mathematical operation which is being performed and it is giving you the loss of data, then it should be detected. Okay, at least the user should be warned, or any sort of disciplinary action should be taken care of. For example, I'll just say LVR1 over here, and here I'll just say exit. Okay, exit is something that I want to get the output in that whether the data I am getting is in a perfect format or not. And here I also want to specify the test float, for example, 34, and here I am saying 5 divided by 2. So whatever is the value, exact value, just I would ask the system to print that. So I'll just say okay, exit, and it would print the LVR1. So it would print the division factor for me. It would say the exact value of your division is turning out into 2.5. But whenever I am expecting that a 1 divided by 3 is occurring, and if I just say activate, and say execute, if you see, I would get a dump. The current program had to be terminated because the operation could not be carried out precisely. Value can't be converted to the target type without becoming a less exact. Okay, so it means the number that you are getting is a rounded number, and that is why the loss of data is occurring. So you have to handle this exception called CXSY rounding. Here what we would be doing is we can say try the exception. You have to catch that exception. And here you can get the values of exception as well. So exception would be nothing but I can say an object. So I can say exception object I can directly get in, let's just say even. And here I can try printing the value, whichever it is. So I can say, let's just say not exact value. I'll just say execute. And this time, of course, I won't get an exception, but instead I would just say not exact. And this would give me the value that is getting converted. So in real world, what we would be doing, whenever we are doing any sort of such operation, be it in a world of finance, where of course currency, the value of invoice is very critical, or we can say if you are in material management or SD or anything, there are any sort of calculation which is happening around the currency, you can write your operation inside a keyword called exact. In case of any sort of exception raised, you can handle the exception and you can ask your business, what should I do over here? Should I write a delta condition which would do the accumulation of the loss of data that is happening, or should I raise an alarm, or I can say should I give a warning, or should I stop the calculation there and then? Okay, so that is what exact would ultimately help you out. And for that, what we need a specific conversion to happen in a particular set of data. So when I say desc float 32, it means I want my output to be there in a form of a decimal float. So it would do the internal conversion, give you the data, and if it is not exact, then you would get an error for sure, and that would help you out. So sometimes errors are also good. Okay. So this on the primitive data types. Whenever it comes to an object-oriented data type, at that particular point in time as well, you might experience that the input and the output are not compatible. Okay, for example, you might have seen many a times that I do have a parent class which does have an object called, I can say, OP1, and I do have a child class which is called OP2, or I can say OC1, OC2. And here, let's just say these two classes are there, and I am creating the instance out of that. So I can say instance of my parent class which I am creating is with an object of a child class. I can say OC2 over here, and here I can pass the constructor parameter. So I am trying to instantiate my parent class, but here while doing the object assignment, I am giving it the object of a child. So it means, let's just say my parent has three properties. My parent has three properties plus two methods. Now, in the object oriented, definitely we would have some sort of inheritance. So whenever I am creating a child class out of my parent class, it would get this three property. On top of it, the child class might have defined its own two more method, and let's just say two more properties. It means my child class now have five properties and four methods. So if I try to assign the object of my child class to a parent class, what I am trying to do? I am trying to expand the capability of my um, object which I am creating. So I am trying to expand the capability of my parent class, and that is something we can consider it as an upcasting, because we are assigning the responsibility to a parent class which is more than what it was having. It can also be other way around. It can also be other way around. We could also have a object of a. We can also say I am trying to initialize the instance of a child class, and here I am trying to give the object of a parent class to that. So here parent class is also having limited set of information. So we are trying to do some sort of narrow casting over here. When we do have certain sort of classes linked to each other via inheritance, and we are trying to assign instance of one to the class reference of another at that particular point in time, we can come at a situation where the type compatibility is not occurring. So in earlier days, what we used to do. So let's just take an example. We have we can say RTTA classes, runtime object of RTTA service, right? And there, let's just say I want to get the list of columns of T001W. T001W is nothing but let's just say a plant table for me. I want to figure out the component of that, like what all columns does it contain and everything. Now, if we want to get any sort of column component, which particular class can give us that? So for that, we have a component description class. Okay, so component description is the class which would help us with that particular set of information that we are looking for. So what we would need is a instance of a component description class. And for that, we have two steps that we would be performing. Step one that we would be performing over here is, let's just say I am having CL abap. I am defining a type DSCR over here, and I'm describing a object. I can say describe by name. Guys, just give me a moment. Okay, guys. Okay, so here we want to get the type object of this particular type DSCR. Okay. Now, what we want is we want the components. So when I say CL abap type description described by name, if I just go inside that, what it would return me? It would again return me the instance of type DSCR. But the type DSCR class which it is returning me, does it have any sort of information of what all components it can contain? No, it does not. But instead, if I just go with another class, CL abap, I can say it would be a struct DSCR. Here it has information of my components that I am looking for. It has a part of attribute. So in any way, what I want is my output should be in a form of CLABAP structure DSCR. So all I want is a reference of, all I want is a structure which would give me type, let's just say type refer to. So, but as if I assign the output type to this, so this particular structure is giving me just the instance of a CLABAP type DSCR. I want the output in a form of a structured DSCR because it contains a method get components which is of my interest. So if I assign two object, okay, one to another, but they are not type compatible, what I would get? I would get an error. The result type of functional method can't be converted to this. So what we used to do in earlier days, if we are getting such sort of error, we used to write that question mark equal to. This question mark equal to is nothing but a casting. Okay, so we used to perform a casting with the keyword called question mark equal to. It used to get performed in a way we were willing to, but it was becoming more and more confusing because we were not sure what we are actually doing. And hence, to make the same functionality in a better way, what SAP did is, SAP just did initialize, or I can say give us one more alternative for doing the same operation. It just say if you want to get the structure DSCR, all you have to do is you have to use a cast operator over here, and this cast operator would define what sort of output you want. So I can say I want output in a format of CLABAP type DSCR, because I hope you remember new ABAP syntax is nothing but a LHS equal to the keyword we are specifying over here along with the data type that we want the output into, or hash if we have data type already specified, and the constructor parameter. So on left hand side I do have a variable. I want to cast it to CLABAP structure DSCR over here, and the operation that we are performing over here is nothing but a CLABAP type DSCR as we have specified over here. So we are getting a type DSCR object. We are trying to convert it to CLABAP. So it means I am trying to convert object of one type to object of another type. So I am doing a casting. I am performing a object casting with a cast operator, and we are able to achieve the final structure in a format of CLABAP DSCR, and hence I would be able to retrieve the set of component that I am willing to, because now what is the data type of LS structure DSCR? It is nothing but a structure DSCR, and hence I would be able to refer to this component, or if I also want to get the method, then I would also be able to. So here I am having LS structure DSCR. This LS structure DSCR is having a type of structure DSCR, and it is having the components, and we would be able to derive the components out of that in the LT-com. So I know it has LT-com, which is saying, okay, it has 11 components, out of which these are the one which are listed. Okay, so these are the include structure which I am getting over here. Okay. So this is the meaning of a casting. So here, while doing the casting, we are working with an object oriented data type, but whenever I am saying I am working with conversion, I am working with a primitive data type. Same primitive data type operations that we would need to be performed, okay, whenever we are working with exact or lossless operator. So this is something that we would be using very frequently whenever it comes to a mathematical, or we can say currency based operations, because that is very we can say currency, or I can say revenue sensitive. So the loss of data might hamper the company in auditing, or we can say reconciliation. Now, last but not the least thing that we would be seeing over here as a part of new ABAP syntaxes is oops. Let's just say I'm going into a class and I am trying to create a class. For example, I'm saying, okay, ZCL, so I am trying to create a class. Let me just give a good name. So I can say ZCL underscore, that would be good. I can say a base class I am creating. I'll be going with a usual class. The details of what all type of classes and all we can have, that is something we would be going more into a object oriented world whenever we would be working with an AMDP. Here I am creating a normal usual ABAP class. I'll just say save. Here I want to write some sort of method called get data. I would be defining an instance method with a visibility called public, and I can say get data. I won't be writing any sort of code logic, because what we want to know is how I can perform the operations in a method in a new ABAP. Okay, that is all I want to know. Logic would again be a normal ABAP logic. That is something that you already know. You are all masters in that. Here I want one set of input called, let's just say IV BUKRS, and here I can say I want BUKRS. So I can say type would be my importing parameter that I want. So I can just select from here. It would be a pass by value, but I can make it mandatory, so I won't make it optional. Okay, and here I want some sort of returning parameter. For example, I want RV EBLN, for example. Whatever is the first purchase order that the system is getting, I just want that to be part of my output. So I can say EKKO EBLN. I'll just say activate. As I do have a class, what I will be doing over here, I will just say I have to get the handle of this class. The handle of this class is referred to as an object, right? So how I can create an object of a class? If I want to call this method, which is an instance method, what I will need? I will need an object. For creation of an object in a new ABAP, we do have very good keyword called new. I can say instantiate object. Here I'll just say data. I'll just specify LOOBJ. I'll just specify a keyword called new. Again, it's the same thing. Left hand side variable new. The type of the data, I can say this is my data type, and that's it. So here we are able to instantiate a object, and this object would give us a liberty of calling any sort of its invocable component. So any sort of its public component, we would be able to invoke directly using this object. If I want to call the method, what I will be doing, I can just say I want to get the data. So I'll just say LOOBJ. Earlier we used to write like call method LOOBJ get data, and this is how it used to look alike. So if it is looking alike something like this, then I could also have said I'm defining just a type over here, or I can say input parameter. I'll just copy and paste it down over here. And I want some sort of receiving parameter. Receiving parameter is a returning parameter of a method. If I want to instantiate this, I could have defined a LVEBLN separately over here, or instead, as a shortcut, what I can do is I can just say data LVEBLN. So we can do inline declaration of a receiving parameter of a method. This is one way of doing this. If I omit the call method keyword from here, I can say LOOBJ and get data. All you have to do is you have to pass PBUKRS over here. So I can say this is my option 1. This is option 1, with the help of which I can call my method. Second option would be I can directly omit the call method, directly write it like this, pass the importing parameter to the method, and just get the result on the left hand side. So I can say lv-ebln2 equal to, this is something I can also do. So this is another way of calling a method and handling the returning parameter. Here I am writing data over here. Here you can write the data over here. If the system is having another type of returning parameter called exporting parameter instead. So I can say get data 2, and I want exporting parameter. And let's just say I also want to give the BSART as my output. Then also you can do is, this is a third type of, I can say this is how you can also call a method which is containing a exporting parameter. You can say LOOBJ over here. As the method was recently created, the system is not able to detect that. It's also fine. This would become my importing, and it would have so whatever is the data type, we do not need to worry about. All the inline declaration is something that would take care of all of them. Okay, so here we do have a P BUKRS. Here I am getting, let's just say EBLN3, and here I am getting the, I hope you remember sometime back we have also used this importing parameter in an ALV display, where though it was an object type, system was able to initialize it. Okay, so we can have multiple ways with the help of which we can work with an object oriented type when it comes to a new app. This is how we can instantiate it. This is how we can receive the data. Option 1. Another way, or we can say simplest way, is to just go with a left hand LHS equal to RHS side kind of syntax. This is how we can also work with an importing parameter. Okay, very simple, but very straightforward and readable. Okay, so this is what you all should be knowing as we are at end of the new ABAP syntaxes. Is it clear to everyone, or does anyone has any question? Maybe you can ask. Or we would be jumping on to the new, very important HANA artifact called CDS, the core data services.
Sumit, I have one doubt.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, we have written option to write in the program,
Yeah.
As we have one receiving output and we have written the we are calling the method of that class, right? So
Mm-hmm.
now we have two exporting parameter. So again we have to write a second line for that, right? Like here we have written lv-ebln2, right? So one we have to write lv-ebln3, then we have to write lv-basart in the next line, right? By calling the same method.
No. So see here. Okay, I'll just go over here.
Yeah, line number 36.
I'll just write. What is the name of the class? It is. If I just go over here, let me just uh, introduce you what all kind of parameter we can have. We can have importing, which would be the input to the method. Exporting, which would be going back from the method. Changing is something which would be two-way. You would pass some input, you can change it, and again it would be returning in the same parameter. Returning is also a returning parameter, but that would be the only parameter that would get returned from the method. So if I just say RVEBL, and now if I just say RVBSART, and here if I specify returning, if you see what does system is saying, the addition type can only be specified once. It means the returning parameter is only possible once in a method signature. Okay, so that is why it is returning. So what the system might be doing internally, if you can think of what returning would be doing, there would be some sort of syntax called return in a particular line of code into a method which actually has been written in a kernel level, and the very moment where the EBLN's value is filled, the system would return the control from there. And that is why I cannot have more than one returning parameter in a method. You can only have one returning parameter. And the syntax that we specified over here, that left hand side equal to right hand side, is only possible for a returning parameter.
Okay.
In case of exporting and importing, you have to go by this. So
Okay.
this syntax is only possible for exporting and importing. Alternate way is receiving, but you can still have only one receiving parameter because that is nothing but a returning.
Correct. Okay.
Anyone else
Thank you.
having any question? Welcome. Okay, perfect. Now let's just jump onto, or you can say, let us jump with the world in the competition of learning the core data services, because that is something that I can see as the future, at least because all of the new upcoming technologies which SAP is releasing is mainly rotating all around core data services. So it is not just a view, it is above and beyond the simple SE11 view that we can have. Okay. So what we would be doing is we would be trying to make our system ready for the development of a CDS views. So I hope you all would also be having your system ready. I hope you already know. If you don't know, maybe you can also note down the steps, or you would also be going with the recording going forward. So all you have to do is you have to have some sort of Eclipse version installed on your system. Currently, I am having 2019-12, for example. I think last version that got released was 2021-12. I'm not sure whether 2022-03 has also been released. You can select any sort of Eclipse version you are comfortable with, or if you are already having one, then you can also go with that. What you can do over here is,
Sumit,
yep,
yeah.
please, please,
So we
yeah,
need to
Praveen.
have this. We need to have this Eclipse of the latest version downloaded, right?
You should have a Eclipse version which is near to new. I can't say new because I'm also working on 2019-12. Not a
Okay.
very old version and not very
Yeah.
new as well, because many a time what happens is, let's just say I'm a developer, you are a developer. If you are releasing
Yes.
something, then in the last patch version, whatever you might have released might have some sort of bugs. Okay, so what
Okay.
I'm expecting is don't go with the very latest version. just go at least one step before that. So it would be
Yeah.
good for you as well.
Yeah, and shall we regroup in 5 minutes? Then we'll take a break because this is a new topic. Huh? We can
Yeah,
regroup
fine,
as well. It
fine
is
for me.
12. It is
Yeah,
12.
fine.
If everyone is okay, we can just take a quick 5 minute break and we can go 12:07, 12:08. It is 12:03
Yeah,
now. By 12:08 we can connect.
okay. Yeah, everyone would
Yeah.
be fine, I guess. So it's at 12:03.
Yeah.
Let's just get there back at 12:08. Okay.
Yeah.
See you all. Bye.
Yeah. Thanks.
So,
Yeah, please.
yeah,
So,
I
hello.
just want to know the basic thing like this Eclipse. If we have SAP already installed, if we install Eclipse, it will be how it will be connected to SAP. That I didn't get. That's why I'm
Yeah,
just.
that is something that we are currently covering. Getting comfortable with Eclipse, how you can set up your Eclipse and everything. That is something we would be covering right now.
Okay, okay. So
Okay, after the
previously
break.
I have few doubts. Can I ask now?
Let's just get the back after the break. So you can also
Yeah.
have one, and let's just get the back at the same time, 12:08. Okay, see you.
Oh, yeah, sure, sure. Thank you.
Okay, so are we all here?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So before going on the break, Pallavi, you were having some sort of queries. We can discuss it now if you are here.
Yeah, Sumit, I
Yeah,
just
Gaurav.
want to know about all the softwares. What bit should we have in our system? Okay, or if we have to go for any online access, or how we should.
So for you to work on, or you can say do the hands-on on CDS AMDP,
Mhm.
what you should have on your system is SAP GUI logon, the very first thing.
Okay.
Second thing that you should have is Eclipse. And I think for Eclipse to work, you need JDK, Java Development Kit. So I think these would be the three things, or I can say prerequisite for all the things to work. Within the Eclipse, we would need some add-ons, but I'll just show you how you can have those add-ons installed on your system as well.
Okay. And if you go for any online access, then I think all will be installed there, right?
Yeah, it depends. Matlab, let's just say I do have a vendor who is providing me the system, mostly they
Mhm.
give us a ready-made system where everything is pre-installed, because if you are getting the system for a SAP, and if he is a SAP vendor, then definitely he would give all the pre-required installation done on his system.
Mhm. Okay.
So mostly it would be there, and in case it is not there, maybe you can directly reach out to the vendor and they'll get that things installed. That can be done definitely.
So for our
Okay.
practice, we can directly download the Eclipse, right?
Yeah. So for example, if you are having the server access,
Yeah.
maybe Rahul might have already talked about, and if you have
Yes. Yes.
taken the server access, then you can directly log in over there, and
Okay.
that system would be having each and everything. Let me just say that is the right one. Yeah, it is the right one. Okay, so here you would have Eclipse installed. The installer version. I think this is the one which I was talking on. Yeah, so this is Neon. I think somewhere you would also find Eclipse. Yeah, here it is, Eclipse IDE for Enterprise Java. I think this is some sort of, yeah, this is 2012, 21, 12. So this is something that you can use, and here SAP GUI is also there. So that was one of the prerequisites. That is something that you are already having. Second, this version is just got launched. Which one is this? So this is Neon. I don't want this, for example. I'll just close this. And you would have this, so maybe you can launch this. So the 2021-12 Neon is also fine, but Neon is a bit older one, so I prefer something which is on 2020s. And here you would be able to so on remote, you have SAP GUI logon. So that is a system from vendor first. JDK is also installed because we have already informed him. Yeah, sometimes it happens that this workspace is also being used somewhere. So the better way is you can say choose in the browse, you can create your own folder that no one would be using. So I can say a new folder. I can say my workspace could be just a folder. You can just select the folder, just a launch. After having this, all you have to do is, yeah, you have to also check on your logon, do you have the required uh, path of the system maintained. So for example, I do already have the HANA systems path maintained over here. You should also have. So once you check whether the individual login is working, so currently I got a gift. Okay. So till the time, let's just also focus on installation. I hope the system is also ready soon. What is this connection status over here? I think it's also the same. Let me just also pass this on to vendor. So meanwhile, we have the installation ready. We can also have the servers back. Okay, never mind. So you should have the system connection also ready over here. Now, once you have the system, or I can say Eclipse ready with you, all you can do is just escape. I don't want to go with update right now. Here, you can check on your Windows perspective, open perspective, other, whether you do have ABAP or not. It should be there. If it is not, then there are a few steps that you have to perform. You have to install the ADT. So ADT is something that you might have heard many a times. So this is your advanced ABAP development kit. Okay, that should be there. So what you can do for that is, if ABAP is not there, you can just say cancel. You can go in help, install new software. Over here, you would find tools.hana.ondemand. If it is not there, then all you can do is you can directly say, copy this. You can say, here you can write, I can say ADT tools. Here you can specify https tools.hana.ondemand. If you want the latest version, you can go with latest, or you can also specify the version of Eclipse you are using. So I can say I am using 2021-12. I can say add, and it would start searching for that. Here, if you see, the one which is of our interest is this ABAP development tools. You can just say expand, and here you would find any sort of changes. If it is done, you can directly select this, say next, and if there are any required installation to be done, system would do that installation for you. I think it should not be your case because you might not have multiple Eclipse installed on your system. That is what I have already done. So I might feel some trouble, but that's not an issue. I can say once you have the Eclipse installed and the ABAP perspective also installed, the ADT, here you can go, or I can show you on my personal, that would be good because I guess that is more safe. You can say Eclipse. You can say launch. My Eclipse workspace is being used. It is a bit strange. Okay, it is already here. That's why. Fine. Here, install new software. In the install new software, you can again go with a tools.hana.ondemand. Whatever version of your Eclipse is, select that. Select the ABAP development tool. I have all the items installed. Once you have installed everything, you would get all items are already installed. This is something that you should be checking. If it is already installed, you would not get any sort of next or finish anything. If you are getting, just say next, 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 I agree, finish, and you would get that fields installed. Once it is done, you can say Windows perspective, open perspective, and here in ABAP, you would find multiple things, ABAP, connectivity, profiling, everything. You should go with just an ABAP and just say open, and it would open the ABAP perspective. So whatever system you have already configured, you would find here in Project Explorer. But in case you have installed any system, I have installed any system, that's why I'm getting. But if you say initially what sort of output you would be getting, working now. So good. Vendor just responded. The system is working. Here, delete and let it be. If you are at very first step, you don't have any sort of system over here. What you would be doing? You can just say file over here, go new, and here, as I have created it many times, you might find a web project over here. Otherwise, you can go over here in other. You can search for the web project. So this ABAP project is something which is of your interest. Once you say next, you would get all the systems listed. You would get all the systems listed. Here you can select EDU, or I can say whatever is the server that you have configured or which is there on your logon. All those would start listing over here. So here I do have 5 systems, so I'm getting 5 systems listed. If you have one or any number of, you would get that. Once you say next, you would get all the server details that would be correct by default. Just say next. Here you would be prompted to pass the client ID. I have added, so I'm getting that. You would be prompted for that. So what you can do is you can just say log on, and here you can get the default client ID, the user ID, and the password that you have to pass. So I can pass all of those over here. Once you say next, your system would get configured. So for example, I'm passing over here next. And you can say finish. So it would configure the system. So for example, I have configured this system and it is now visible over here like this. Okay. Once you are into the system, you would get multiple things over here, like the local object. So in SAP, we do have a local object, right? So those local objects, the favorite packages and the system library. So this system library is nothing but your SE80. SE80, that is something what it is. But I would just like to ask, who all already have this system configured? Are we all comfortable over here, or is anyone facing any sort of issues while configuring or have any confusion?
I need to configure actually. I have not configured it still. So I
Okay,
need to
maybe you
configure.
can try configuring. Mostly it should be
Yeah.
very straightforward. In case you are facing any issue, maybe you can let me know.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone
I
else?
have to also install.
Yeah, I
Okay.
also need to install, like if I face an issue. So for the
So,
Eclipse, first we have to download from Google, like any version, right?
okay, tell me one thing. Like, are you all having the server from the vendor, or you are trying to install on your project, or you can say on your own system? How is it?
No, like project also it's needed. So
Yeah. So for
maybe I
the
have to.
project,
If we have
definitely.
any project,
Yeah, sorry, Gaurav. Go ahead.
if we have already project, I mean where we are working
Mm-hmm.
in our company, okay. So can
Mm-hmm.
we install Eclipse on our system or company laptop?
Definitely.
Then we can,
Definitely.
right?
All you should have is a SAP GUI logon on that system where you are trying to install. Because the
Yeah, we
system
have.
connection, yeah, the system connection I'm getting is from that logon.
Okay.
Okay.
So
And
only one software we have to install, that is Eclipse, right?
exactly. But I think
Okay.
for Eclipse to work, you would need JDK. But by default, all the company laptop does have JDK, the Java Development Kit. If it's
Okay.
not there, then you would be prompted for that. But you can get that while installing. So if you are installing Eclipse, if you are getting that JDK is not installed, it would be very clear error. Then you have to go with the Java
Okay.
Development Kit installation. Once you install that Java Development Kit, then Eclipse installation should also work.
Okay. So better to install in our company laptop only, right?
Definitely, because because this training is not going to last for lifetime, right? Of course,
Yes.
organization is something that we have to keep on working for.
Mhm. Correct.
Okay, you
So
can
we will
work.
try
Praveen,
our system, then we
Yeah,
will let
Praveen.
you know.
Yeah, sure, sure,
can
sure.
can you just explain in a line or two what exactly is ADT?
So
Just
this
wanted to.
ADT is kind of, you can say, a web development toolkit. So when I say that toolkit is required, why? Because even though you were not introduced to SAP, you were not introduced to ABAP, you might have heard Eclipse, right? Because Eclipse is a quite versatile tool. It is all not only required for ABAP development, it can do many things. You can use it for Java development. You can use it for any sort of other development. So it is working on a plugins. So when you are working on a plugins, and let's just say if you want this Eclipse to also be versatile for ABAP relevant development, you would need some sort of plugins that would understand ABAP, and that ABAP is actually being like it. The system is understanding ABAP just via ADT. So that plugin is required, and that is why we need ADT.
Okay. Okay.
Now, so maybe you can all try having the system configured for you all, and maybe then you would be able to follow. In case you are facing any issue, you can contact me, or I can say in the upcoming session as well, we can have that issue resolved on the screen sharing. So you can share your screen and I can get that issue resolved. That's also fine for me. Okay. Now, once you have the system configured, let's just move one step forward. Assume you have the system configured. Now, what we are trying to achieve? We are trying to do all our development over here into our ADT. So for example, if you are over here and if you want to perform any sort of operation like we used to perform on SAP GUI logon, I can say navigate, open SAP. Sorry, I mute you all. If you want to perform any sort of operation, for example, I want to work as I used to work earlier, I can say open SAP GUI. And here, it would open the same kind of screen as we used to have earlier on the right hand side. This is a part of a Eclipse now. I want to create a package for our development, for example. Here I want to go with, let's just say, package. Let's just say ZBM22. I'll just create a package. I can say base package March, April 2022. It would be a development package. I'll just say okay. And here you can also create your own tier. I can say AOH March, April 2022. So we have this package installed, or I can say package created. I'll just copy the name from here. Now I'll just close this window. I don't need it anymore. In the favorite package, what you can do is you can just say right click. There's some issue with the right click actually. So I can say new. So actually it is, yeah, understood. Now it is working. So I can say add package. So many a time what happens is whenever we are doing a development with Eclipse, you might be working on some process streams, like just I'm working for ZPP, ZMM, likewise. So you can add your package where you are performing your development. So going forward, whatever sort of development activity you are doing, you can directly find it very quickly so that it would be easy for you to do the development. So here, what we would be doing is we would be adding the package as a favorite. Now, let's just say I want to go with my very first development over here. I want to create some sort of CDS view. Then, of course, we would be going in the same direction. Before that, let's just say if you want to create any sort of normal web program as well, you can say new, any sort of a web program.
Sumit, here we have created one package, right? So if the CDS view what we create can be
Uh-huh.
accessed from the SAP, right? Like from through any program.
Mm-hmm.
So
We
this
can.
this will be like global one CDS
So
view.
the definitely it would be a global one. So the
Okay, but package.
development.
Mhm.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Like package will be different, right? So the package we use in the program will be different. Like if it is
No.
different package. Mhm.
Okay, okay, no. So understood. Understand. Like this is an SAP environment. Just the development environment is differing. As my SAP GUI logon is not understanding the CDS AMDP kind of syntaxes, I have to go with ADT. But the package which I created is the one. It's same as what we used to create over here. So if I just open this,
That
it is
is
a
the
normal package.
package. No, the package which we use in the program should be same with that CDS view package. That's what I mean.
Okay, tell me one thing. What is the definition of package for you?
Like package basis, like if we have two three programs and two three program has different package, maybe for different requirement we have different packages, so in that
Yeah.
program table. So but this package which we create for the cds view is only one, but this will be different package when compared to all the three, so it will be used
So,
like.
so
Mhm.
it depends. It depends. Let's just say in your organization, you have a requirement that whenever you are developing a CDS, always keep it in a separate package. So you can create a separate package for that. In many organization, you might have a requirement that for all the, let's just say, related development, for all the PP related development, business stream is something that is defining, okay, what would be my package. So in that case, you would have a business stream wise package. And that package would contain your normal web programs, your OData service, your CDS views, your classes, your data dictionary object, everything can be there in a single package. So,
Okay, but
so it
if
depends
it,
how your organization is willing to have the objects structured.
yeah, that's fine, but this package if it is different we can't use it.
This package is not at all different. It is a normal package that we have into our system.
Yeah, that normal package I understood. What I mean is, see, if I have this name ZB underscore
Hmm, hmm,
M22 package for the serious view, but in
hmm.
program I use different package for different purpose.
So
So
what
that
you
time,
can do is I just created a fresh package just because I didn't have any sort of existing package. Let's just say you do have a program which is already having some sort of package assigned to that. So that particular package also you can use for creation of a CDS view. So
that's
going
what it
forward,
should be
yeah,
same package. That is my question. It should be
yeah,
same package. Yeah, okay.
it it can be same package.
It can be, but if it is different, also we can access the serious view. That's what I
Definitely,
mean. Okay.
definitely, definitely. So many a times you might also see that in my report I am calling a standard BAPI. Okay, so in that standard BAPI is belonging to a separate package, right?
Yeah,
Still, I'm
yeah.
able to access that.
Okay, accessible. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, I am first going with very generic thing. So, for example, I am going with, let's just say, I want to create a normal ABAP program because I just want to introduce you how I can do the development over here. So I can say ZBM22 Eclipse. So it would seems the same as it look like used to look like into your ABAP. So I can say ZBM22. I'll just say save. It would prompt me for TR. I'll just select the TR and I'm through. It would open a web editor that would look bit different what it used compared to what it looked used to like earlier. So here it is how this is how your ABAP editor would look like. I'll just do a normal shot of development over here. Like we used to have pretty printer here also we do have, but it's a bit inside. So the shortcut is same. It's Shift F1. Now, let's just say I will just create a very simple program because then we would like to jump onto CDS. Currently, we are focusing on Eclipse. So I can say EBLN, BUKRS, PSART. Now I want to display it in ALV, so it will be the same thing. Why I am just writing this line of code is because I want to show you how you can debug into an Eclipse. That's the all purpose. Okay. Otherwise, this normal ABAP is something that you all know by default. So here, for any sort of signature, you can have Shift Enter, like we have tab in normal SAP GUI. Now, if I just say execute, definitely I would be getting the option of, let's just say, how I want to execute. There are multiple ways, whether you want to get the unit test, if you want to check the program in test cockpit, likewise, you would be by default saying, I want to execute it as an ABAP application. So here I do have the set of data presented to me. Let's just say I want to debug this as well. All you have to do is you have to go over here at line number, just say double click on that. It would put a breakpoint. And here, let's just say if I just say execute like this, it would say the perspective which you were earlier in was an ABAP perspective. Now to debug, you have to go again in one more perspective. That perspective is nothing but a different plugin you have to activate, and that is something which is called it as a debug perspective. So do you want to activate that? You can say yes, switch. So it would switch to a debug perspective. Here you have a call something equal to X or something. These are your variables. So here you would be finding the list of variables. So this LTEKKO is something that you already have over here. Right here, I do have same F6, 5, 6, 7, 8. So if I just say F6 over here, you would be getting the LTEKKO populated. If I just say double click over here, you would be getting that all the lines record over here, all the line of record. If I want to edit this, I can just double click. I'll just say 1711 and I'll just say save. So it would update the value, and going forward, this LTEKKO would be having the value updated. So it is like a normal debugger, just the interface is differing a bit. Okay. Other than that, it's everything same. For example, you want to give some.
We can have watch point as well.
Yeah, we can have. Let's just say I want to put a watch point in LTEKKO. So you can select this variable. So you can have a cursor on this variable and just say right click. I have some issue with the right click. That's a big issue. Okay. 1 second. Yeah, here you can say set watch point over here. So when you say set watch point, it would set a watch point on that, and going forward, whenever the values are changing in the program, like we get all the messages over here, same way on the status bar, you would be prompted with the messages. Still, let's just say configure debugger layer and everything which is there in web. So this debugger is also getting versatile day by day. So normal thing, breakpoints, watch points are possible, but certain things which are there, that is something that would take some time to be part of this debugger as well.
So Sumit, we can use the normal F5, F6, F7, F8, what we used
Yeah.
to use at
Yeah,
GUI level. Those 4 things we can use.
Yeah, here if it is also same, it's 5, 6, 7, 8. If you see it's mentioned over here. So if but if I just press 5, 6, 7, 8, you won't be able to see it in the screen sharing, no? That's why I'm just going by the buttons.
No. Oh, that is okay.
Okay.
I had one doubt. Okay, so there was an AMDP issue in our organization. Okay, a colleague of mine was doing, but he was only able to do F6 for an AMDP.
Yeah. Because
so that is different. That is different from this. Okay, that we'll be knowing in the later stages. But is it true?
Yeah, that is true.
Okay.
So in AMDP, everything gets executed in database layer. So once you are in ABAP, here you would be able to execute everything. But once you are in AMDP method, you won't be able to, because what is the next layer? So what is the next layer of a select query? That is again a database layer thing. So same way database object is also okay. So AMDP is also such is getting executed at a database layer. So if you try to press F5, you would be expecting that I might jump inside that function, but that is not possible. And that is why system would only allow you for either F6 or F8. So a breakpoint to breakpoint jump or a statement by statement jump.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, I guess this is how initially you would see Eclipse. I mean, from a eyes of an beginners. But I going forward, as soon as we start with all the developments, okay, you would feel start feeling more comfortable. So that is the main agenda. That is how we would also be going with. So I'll just say Windows perspective, open perspective, other, because I accidentally close all the windows. Yeah, I do have everything back now. Let's just spend some time for knowing what we all started with, the CDS views. So we started knowing ABAP on HANA. Then we say, okay, we would be learning the new ABAP syntaxes. As a part of new ABAP syntax, you learn, okay, I do have an open SQL syntax. We do have an application server level syntax. It is true. Next HANA artifact that we are talking of is a CDS called Core Data Services. Okay. But there is also an understanding, and which is a partially correct as well, that CDS is nothing but a view. Okay. But if we are coming from an environment of an ABAP, we also know that we also have some sort of DDIC views also available with us. Okay. So if I think of a DDIC view, I can have multiple types of view, which is also capable of doing some things, which is also helpful, and we were using those till date. Okay. But now when it comes to core data services, what is different? How is the architecture actually built? So a CDS is built again using OpenSQL. Okay. So the coding language that we would be using while developing CDS is an OpenSQL syntaxes. Along with OpenSQL syntaxes, to give all the functionality, okay, to give all the functionality spawned out of this particular CDS view, we have a list of annotation libraries. Annotation is very powerful thing when it comes to a CDS view. So for example, we have different annotation library for different purpose. Let's just think of a normal SA11 table you are creating. So you are saying, okay, I am creating an SA11 table, then you might have some sort of technical settings. So if you do have a technical settings, you might say, okay, I am having a data class, which is saying I am creating a table for master data or transactional data. How many records can be there into the table for memory allocation and everything, buffering and everything you might specify. Same way. So the thing which you are specifying over here is called wizard based interface, because in SAP GUI, what we are getting is a wizard based interface. We are mentioning everything, but we were not writing any sort of code line for table creation, view creation, anything. Instead, we were going by the wizard. CDS is a code base. Okay, it is code base. It is not wizard base. You won't be able to drag and drop through few fields and everything. For whatever things you want to perform, whatever operation you want to write, you have to write an individual line of code for that. Okay, that is why it is code based interface. So for maintaining such technical settings, we should have something. So we have multiple set of libraries. So we have some sort of annotation. So in CDS, whatever starts with at the rate, this at the rate is called an annotation. So you can say whatever starts with is annotation. So for example, I do have an annotation for maintaining some sort of ABAP catalog level. So this technical setting is something which is maintained at ABAP catalog level. So I do have multiple things in when it comes to an annotation. How annotations are divided is in a form of a namespace. If I want to do some sort of technical setting relevant thing, I do have a namespace called ABAP catalog. If I want to do some sort of a UI handling, I do have a UI namespace. If I want to have some sort of operation being done for access control, I do have again one more namespace called access control. So this all the things which are there are called namespace. Now let's just say I want to maintain some label. So I'll just say, okay, UI dot label. equal to, let's just say, XYZ. How I would be writing this exactly? Exactly, you would be saying like UI.label equal to XYZ. This is how you would be saying this. So this at the rate is denoting that it is annotation. The first few characters denote before the dot that it is a namespace, and the dot would follow the property that you want to set, the label property, you want to set the title property, likewise. So these are the annotation would be looking alike. Okay. Then we have multiple things called associations and everything. Okay. So these are the things which are not there in DDIC view. But let's just say when I am saying I am creating a CDS views, okay, what I am trying to provide? I am trying to provide a set of data. That is all we are always rotating around. And that is why the name is core data services. We are providing the data services. We are providing the data services, and the execution would occur at the core of your database layer. And that is why it is called core data services. This is nothing, purpose is to provide the data, a secure data, the database operations for getting the data, manipulating the data, anything that you provide around the data is termed as a core data services. For providing the data, manipulating the data, preparing the in a form that the user understand, the front end application can consume it easily, we have to perform multiple operations, and for that we have multiple functionalities. Okay. If I talk about the types of a CDS views that we can have over here, then it is a kind of an objective question. Type of CDS. Type of CDS has two answers actually. Many a time you might have seen people saying I have two type of CDS called ABAP CDS view and HANA CDS view. Okay. And many a time you might have also seen people saying I do have a parameterized CDS view and a non-parameterized CDS view. Actually, both are correct, but depends on what is the context. If I talk of a type of a CDS based on the if I talk about the type of CDS based on the environment on which I am doing the development, then it is called ABAP CDS and HANA CDS. So it is called based on the environment where we are doing the development. So when I say
like if it's ECC or S4
no, that
based
is
on the
not the
environment.
case. No, not that environment. So it seems, but ABAP CDS is something which is understandable, or I can say which can be consumed by ABAP. For example, I am into an S4 HANA system. So during the initial session itself, I have shown you what is the system that we are using for the development currently. Okay, they change. Fine, that is good. So if you see, I already shown you that this is a S4 HANA 1909 which I am using. Even though I am on S4 HANA, the kind of CDS that I had developed till date on this system, or I have shown you earlier, or the CDS that we would be developing strictly would be this ABAP CDS. Now, it doesn't mean that, okay, we won't be learning HANA CDS. The syntax is 90 to 95% of change, and 90 to 95% of similar, only 5% of change would be there. But HANA, there are two systems. One is something which is connected to your SAP ERP. So this is your SAP ERP, be it ECC or HANA, both are SAP ERP. When it comes to HANA, there is something which you might have heard of SAP Native HANA. So this Native HANA also have one kind of CDS views that is called HANA CDS. It has a CDS view whose extension would be .hdb CDS. So it's a HANA database CDS. There are multiple HANA artifacts. So like we create AMDP. So in SAP ERP, we can only create ABAP CDS because this CDS view would be capable of generating the DDIC artifact. So this ABAP CDS view, it would be capable of generating DDIC artifact. So when I say that I am generating a CDS view, internally it would also create an SE11 view. That would be a SQL view that which the system would create, and that is why it is called a ABAP CDS view, because it is relying, or we can say it is lying on the ABAP layer, and ABAP would be able to consume that. So even in your RAP platform, if you are working on an on-premise, then definitely you would be going with an ABAP CDS. Okay, so if I just say I'm on HANA CDS, if I'm on a SAP native HANA, you might have heard of SAP native HANA, or you can say HANA XSA, many things it is called as. There you would be developing HANA CDS. Syntax is similar, you would be having the same artifact that you can use, but here it would be a purely HANA view. It won't generate a DDIC artifact internally. Second difference would be, if I am having a new object which I am developing, if I am having any sort of existing object which I am changing, how I can migrate the information from one system dev to quality to production. Here I do have a transport mechanism when it comes to a ABAP CDS. But when it comes to a HANA CDS, the change locking mechanism, okay, the change mechanism, the transport mechanism is not there. For that, we have to go by certain change cycles. So you might use some sort of Git repository, Bitbucket repositories, and everything. So where the change would be logged, and those change would be captured, and you have to transport it as a file transport mechanism, you can say. So based on the environment that you are working, you have to create the CDS view. Based on the extension, you would be able to determine, okay, what kind of CDS it is, because here it is a file-based interface. Here it is an object-based interface. It is. Okay. So what we are learning over here is also CDS, but it is called ABAP CDS. HANA CDS is something that you develop on the HANA environment. So you might have heard of some sort of technology called CAP, the Cloud Application Programming Model. This is something that you can do the development on a SAP native HANA or a Cloud Foundry. It's possible. Here, the Cloud Foundry or SAP native HANA only understands your Node.js or Java language. It doesn't understand ABAP, and that is why ABAP CDS is something that you cannot create over here. And if there is any ABAP CDS, which is not possible practically, but if there are any, then the system won't be able to consume that. Okay, so it depends which environment is there, and based on that, you would be creating artifact. And here, whatever we are generating is called ABAP CDS. The main difference that you might also face in the interview is the transport mechanism is only supported in ABAP CDS. It is not part of a HANA CDS. It is not possible. It is based on some sort of file transport, some change event, change logs, which would ultimately capture what all lines are getting changed and that you would be transporting. So whenever I'm generating a CDS view in ABAP CDS, it would create two things. First, it would create a CDS view entity. Second, it would create an SQL view. This CDS view entity is something, this is the one that you would be using always while consuming it in a program or anywhere. SQL view is nothing but your SE11 view you can think of. You can directly view the skeleton in your SE11. Okay. And when I say I am having a CDS view, there may be certain CDS view which can intake the parameters. So I can say input parameters are possible. And here no input parameters are possible. It's how the name suggests. Very straightforward, very plain. It's very simple. Okay. So I hope from the theory you might be confused a bit that, okay, I thought I'm learning HANA, but I'm learning ABAP. No, that's not the thing. That's how it is named. Okay. It's the same thing, but based on the environment, SAP names that. Okay. What is the consumption layer based on SAP is naming that. Okay. So I would be jumping onto the system, start creating the sample CDS views. Before that, if you have any questions on this particular theory, you can ask. Definitely, this is not the end of the theory portion, or you can say basics that we would be learning, there would be plenty, because DDL, DCL, DML, everything is there. And as and when we jump onto all of those architecture, we would be learning the basics of that, because that is something that helps whenever we are developing something new which I have not heard till date. Anyone is having any questions? Okay. Now, if I just go onto the system, here I would start creating my first, or I can't say first because we have created that earlier, but I can say a CDS view as a part of the CDS concept. It's a CDS, you can search for that. Here you would find the core data services. These all we were actually just discussing till now. Here I do have something called multiple component. The one which is of our interest initially is the one which gives us the DDL functionality. I can say data definition language. So the CDS which is capable of generating, you can say TADIR objects into the system is called a DDL, data definition language. So when we are learning SQL, you might have also seen people writing create, view, this name, the columns. So that is something they use. We can say he is writing DDL, because just by writing that code, a new object would get created into the system. If he is writing create view, a view would get created. If he is writing create a table would get created. And that is why it is called a data definition language. So whenever I am generating a view, a CDS view I'm creating, then I would be going with a data definition. Okay, I'll just select this, say next. Here you can give the name of your CDS view. Currently, we would be giving any name. Then we would also be talking on the naming convention that you should be following ideally. I'll just say ZBM22, I can say sample CDS. I'll just go next over here. Here I can say, I can select the transport request. If I have not, I can also create a new transport request from here. I can just say next. Here I do have multiple templates. If you see, this is very optional. Okay, you can also say untick this checkbox and you can start writing your code from the scratch. But many experienced developer as well are also feeling comfortable while using the template, because it gives you the basic skeleton and you can directly save your effort. So I can say I want to define a view, a simple view. I can say define view and I'll just say finish. It would give you many things. So I hope you would be able to correlate on what we learn. Something is starting with @. So what it is called annotation. What is a purpose of this annotation? It is something at ABAP catalog level. So it is a catalog level, a structure level, a SE11 level, I can say technical settings level annotations. So whatever we do, whatever sort of change we do over here would impact your DDIC. There is access control. So this has something to do with access control, or I can say the data control language over here. So whenever we would be learning DCL, we would also be talking in deep for this access control annotation. Something of end user text is nothing but a label that would be given to your CDS view ideally. So a name and a description kind of thing. Here you would find one more thing, that I am generating a define view over here. Here I have multiple things saying, okay, define view. And here I have something called SQL view. So the one which you are finding over here is called your CDS view entity. So this is your CDS view entity. The one which you are finding over here is nothing but your S11 view. You should give the name to this as well, and it should be different from your CDS view entity. So I can say I want to generate an SQL view, for example. Here you have to provide the data source. So for example, I want to generate a CDS view. If I just say EKKO would be my data source from where I would be getting the data, and you would be specifying the columns as well. Before that, if you see, I would just open the transport request that I created some time back. You can say if I just expand, here you would find everything, the data definition language. So the first thing that you are finding over here is called data definition language. If I just double click on this, you would find that the object type over here is something of type DDLS. So for program we have a PROG, same way for CDS I have a DDLS. If I want to again go one more step forward, yeah, one more thing you might have observed is I do have ZB22 sample CDS, but do I have, if I just expand everything, do I have anything of ZBM22CS CDS? No, I don't have. Let's just say I want to select some sort of fields. I'll just say, okay, key would be my EBLN. So here we would be defining key. What is the importance of key? How you can determine what should be your key? That is something we would be discussing in the upcoming session. BUKRS, BSART, BSTYP. For example, I selected only these fields. After having this, if I just activate, so here is a button of activating. So it just activated this. If I just go back, say enter, expand the transport request, as you can see, still I don't have the SQL view which is there as a part of my TR. What does this mean? It means the only portion that would get transported, okay, whenever you are creating a CDS view is this. So this is my transportable portion and this is my non-transportable. You cannot transport a SQL view. It would never get transported. But if you just open this, in your SC11 in a view, you would find this SQL view over here. So this is just a generated DDL SQL view. Okay. And it would be visible over here, but it would never get transported. The thing that would get transported it is this DDL source. Okay, and it is view only over here. You can't edit it from here. And for that, all you need is a edit in Eclipse.
But when we transfer it, when we send transport the CDS to Polygon production, but still in S11 we will be
Praveen, your voice is bit of robotic. Can you please bit more clear? I can't hear you clearly.
Is it? Am I audible now?
Yeah, bit better.
Yeah. So it's non-transportable. You have said that is okay because it is not captured in the TR. But when the CDS is moved to quality and production, still in S11 we will be able to see the SQL view, right?
Yeah. So that is the thing. So when actually this CDS view got created, when this S11 view got created, when we activated this particular CDS view. Now, what ideally happens when I'm transporting a TR? So when I say I'm transporting a TR, what it would do is it would first send all the objects to the system and then try activating those manually. So many a times whenever you are transporting, you might also got an error that okay, this object can't be activated because these things are missing. Because if you see, whenever you are transporting a TR, it would internally activate all the objects. That is the part of a transport mechanism. So the moment the CDS view entity gets transported, it would perform the system would perform the activation. And the moment it performs the activation, this SQL view would also start appearing in your quality and production system as well. It won't get transported, but it would get generated. Okay. So that is how it would be. So for example, we said, okay, it would get generated. It won't be part of the TR. And going forward, if you also want to see that I don't have a CDS view over here, but instead I want to check, okay, someone created this CDS view, but where actually did it come from? So if you want to figure out any sort of information of existing CDS view into the system, all you can write is object type called DDLS in a TADIR table. And if you want to go with custom, you can say Z. If you want to go with standard, you can directly say execute, and you would find all the objects which are there into the system. So here you would find all the DDLS, all the CDS views. So these are all the CDS views. If you want to find what is the relation, so if you want to figure out, okay, I do have the CDS view. Now, what is the SQL view which would be there? So I do have a table called DDL dependencies. So this DDL dependency takes the name of DDL source. So I can say just copy the name from here. Here, if you just say execute, you would get two objects. One object is there, which is of type STOB, which is a kind of a stored object, a structured object. Another thing that you are having over here is called a view. And this view is nothing but your SC11 view. So from here, you would be able to figure out the relation between your CDS view and SQL view. One with STOB is your CDS view. One with the view is your SC11 view. But this is something that would get generated. It won't get transported for sure. Okay. If you see, if you are over here in SC16 and if you want to open this view, if you just copy the name of the CDS view entity, paste it over here, you won't be able to view the data. If you want to view the data, you have to use SQL view. And you can say execute and you would get the set of data as a part of output of your view. Same goes in your program. So whenever you are in your program and if you are trying to consume that in your program, then all you have to do is you have to consume this CDS view entity. You can consume the SQL view, it will give you the output. But as you can see, this would get transported. So based on environment specific setting, there might be some impact. And all we want to know is that we are using CDS views because we want our program to directly connect to the database and not the application server. So SC11 server is an application layer wizard, which is giving the door entry gate for my database. So if I can directly contact my CDS view, why should I go with my SQL view instead? So if I just want to open the SAP GUI here, I can also say where it was SAP GUI control 6, enter. You can directly say, I want to this time get my data from this CDS view. And if you just say activate, this system, this select query would get you the data from your this SQL query would give you the data directly from your CDS view. So from directly your database architecture. If you're going with SC11 view, it would work, but it's suggestible only to use CDS view always. So this is how you would also be getting the data here. So you can consume the CDS view normally, and it even though it is a non-parameterized CDS, right? I have not specified any sort of parameter. So even after fetching the data, you feel okay, I want to give some sort of input. I don't want to go like this. I want to say PBUKRS EKKO dash BUKRS like this. And you want to just comment down this and you want to say where my BUKRS equal to. So even though it's not a parameterized view, it would accept the where clause. Okay. Because that is filter. So there are two things, filters and parameters. Parameter is something that would come into picture of a parameterized CDS view. This is something we are passing in the where is called filter. So here you would only be getting the data from 1710 and likewise. So it is also possible to pass the where clause in a non-parameterized CDS view as well, for sure. Now, as we are going too much into other direction, let's just also talk of the family. So we'll just make it very short. So there is my SQL view that you all seen just some time back. Then there is something called compare filter. So whenever we would be working with association, we would be learning this compare filter, which determines whether a join should get triggered or not. Okay, that brings me to one more thing. If I just say right click over here Here you would have something called show SQL create statement. We are saying this is a DDL. It is a data definition language. It means it would create this view if it not exists, and it would replace it if it already exists. That is why it is called DDL, data definition language. So it says create or replace this view, and for that select the data from this. So these are DDL, data definition language. Internally it would generate this sort of SQL statement and generate a view for you. And this is how we are writing this. Okay, for us it is this. Internally system would convert it to something else. So whenever we are working with an associations, certain joins are there that would get triggered. Whether they should get generated or not, whether filters should be considered or not, that is something that can be controlled using this annotation. We would be parking this topic for now, and we would be learning whenever we are learning associations. Then is something called preserve key. So the preserve key would simply say whether I should preserve the key that the user is specifying or not. That is also on ABAP catalog. That is something we would be covering tomorrow. So preserve key is something that would determine the key determination behavior. How a key should be determined, that is something this preserve key would determine. Authority check, whether a view should be authorized and only authorized person should be able to see the data, or all the people should be able to see the data. When I say only authorized, then how I can see that what sort of authorization is there to a person, assigned to a person, and what sort of how much data I should actually send to the user. That is something I can say DCL access control is being controlled with this annotation, and this is nothing but a short text. You will be seeing each of those into a detail whenever we are going with that particular topic. This is part of tomorrow, this is part of association, this is part of access control, and this is something that you already know because we have already seen the SE11 views. Okay. So it's 110. So we would just keep it short, but I hope you know how a CDS views get generated, what all components does it contain, and everything. Is it clear to everyone, or is anyone having any question?
Yeah, Sumit, I have one question.
Yeah,
Actually,
Shiva.
they have given one standard view, series view. We have to find how to find DDL view, and if they give only DDL view, how to find series views. I want to know that.
So DDL view, it means CDS view, I guess, because that is what DDLS is. If you are saying
Even
that
SQL, if they
if
give
you
SQL view, we need to find series view name. In
so
case if they give
there are
only
two ways.
standard, okay.
There are two ways. There are two ways. If I just say I have a SE11 view. For example, I am giving you the name that I have created this SQL view. Just check if there is any CDS view on that or not. All you can do is you can just go to SE11 one way. If you just open this, you would find the name of your CDS view over here. ZB22 sample CDS. This is the name of your CDS view. One way. Another way is the one which I just discussed sometime back, DDL dependency. Here, all you have to do is you have to pass the name of your SQL view and just say execute. Here you would be getting that this is your name of your SQL view. This is the name of your CDS view associated with it. So this is how you would also be able to find the DDL source name. Third question, which you might not have asked, but the thing is, let's just say if you're already given a table that I want to generate a CDS view on that, but let's just see if there are any already existing CDS view on EKK or not. I can just say where use, and here in the where use, you would find an option called a data definition. So this data definition is nothing but a CDS views, the DDLS. So if you just say enter, you would find the list of CDS views created on this EKKO. Okay, so these are you can also find if there are any already existing views which are being consumed somewhere in any other CDS views or something. That is something we can see or figure out like a normal values list. Does this answer your question?
Yes, yes. Okay, in that DDL dependency, can we find SQL name for standard series, standard series?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
We can find for any.
yeah, okay.
Anyone else having any questions? Okay, perfect. Then I think there is a start we have actually done on the CDS from a very simple, on a very simplest way. We have seen a non-parameterized view. We would be seeing parameterized view and the advanced topics starting from tomorrow. Okay. Okay, then. Thank you everyone for joining. See you again tomorrow. Okay, bye bye.
Sumit,
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Pallavi.
sorry, I told I have some questions in previous class. Only 2 3 questions. Like I need to know basic like when we have previously SAP ECC, we are using old syntax, right? So
Hmm.
when this new syntax came because of HANA or because of SAP ECC 7.4, like when this new syntax came before HANA or after HANA?
So it was there when actually HANA was not there, but it is a
Mm-hmm.
newer version of. So ultimately, whenever I am saying a new syntax is getting released, earlier
Mm-hmm.
we were using somewhere around 7.3. This is
Mm-hmm.
something we can consider it as a classical ABAP,
Mm-hmm.
right? And afterwards, there SAP released something called SAP ABAP 7.4, 7.5, and I think
Mm-hmm.
recently it is 7.53, which is working. And it
Mm-hmm.
is containing your new ABAP syntaxes, which is optimized version and better in performance. So this patch version of your SAP NetWeaver is containing the all new ABAP syntaxes. It is
So,
not
but
HANA, but definitely
Mhm.
HANA is also considering those.
But when we see this new syntax, if it is not ANA, if it is only SAP ECC, so many will be not working
Exactly. So
uh,
if you say if I am on a S4 HANA, then
mm-hmm,
with a S4 HANA, it is not just a database. It's a
mm-hmm,
HANA database, plus there would be a NetWeaver version
yeah,
associated to it, plus it would
mm-hmm,
be having certain ABAP patch also installed to it. So based
mm-hmm,
on this version of ABAP, which is there in your S4 HANA version, it would
mm-hmm,
determine what is the syntax that would get supported. Many a syntax that you are talking about, I hope you might have also used shorthand syntax, I plus equal to 1. This might not have worked because this is very latest syntax and it is not working on the older HANA. Let's just say if you go with S4 HANA 1610 also, you might not have seen that. In starting
mm-hmm,
from 1910, you might have seen, okay, this syntax start working.
mm-hmm.
Based on this ABAP syntax version, you might find, okay, this syntax would work or not. So you have to check its release document for that. Yeah, please.
Mhm. Not only like I'm totally not asking on ANA only. If it is not ANA at all, only ECC,
Yeah,
like
then also, if it
mhm.
is also SAP ECC 6.0, 7.4 plus HANA database, then you might also have seen that
No, I
many
am not.
syntax are,
I'm not asking about HANA database. Like a database is Oracle only, but
then it would work.
we can use new syntax. But the
We-
new syntax mainly work on HANA like configuration. Right? Like example, if we are fetching data based on column store,
hmm,
so if we use new ABAP syntax, but it is in SAP ECC, that is not HANA database,
that won't
but
work.
it won't work, right?
Right. So HANA database is prerequisite for that.
Yeah,
But
that's.
the because you are what you are talking about currently that you just mentioned, the column base is an open
Mhm.
SQL syntax is you are trying to use, and that would only work on HANA database. If you are
Okay.
trying to use the new ABAP syntaxes, which is an application server level syntaxes, that would
Mhm.
work. Okay,
Mhm.
but the performance that HANA database kind of as
Okay.
for HANA system would be able to give you, that efficient that syntax might not be.
Okay. So in general, it is if it is SAP ECC, that is Oracle database or something, so we can use application level
Yeah,
queries. So, but that
to some
performance.
extent, to some
Okay.
extent,
Mhm.
depending on what is your ABAP version installed on that system.
Okay. 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 Yeah. Yeah. That's what. If it should be like above 7.4 only,
Yeah,
even if we,
minimum.
yeah, minimum. Yeah. Okay. Got it. So then ANA came, and now with both ABAM new syntax and ANA, all these queries will work.
Right. Because recently I have seen many a system which are on ECC, but minimum they are going with is a HANA database. If someone is not having a
Mhm.
fund or someone is not having any sort of plans, they might also go with HANA database. Definitely it won't be SAP ECC on HANA, but
Mhm.
I have seen very few projects which are still running on Oracle. But definitely there
Yeah.
would be few, but not all of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So there will be some minimum queries we can use from the new
Yeah,
syntax.
correct.
Okay. 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 Thank. Okay, thank you. So one more thing, just one plus. So you said in the last class, like binary search will be not available in the new syntax, right? When we use the read statement.
So
So
ideally, it goes with a new. It goes with a linear search internally.
that's what. So, but we usually in the previous thing we used to use binary search because to improve the performance. If it is linear, will it not slow down, or if it is balanced by
So
this
correct.
ANA?
Correct.
Okay.
Your question is very perfect, and that is why many a times I have seen people using old syntax whenever they want to go with the binary search, because
Okay.
we
Okay.
have to accept whenever new things come, it might have some sort of limitations.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, myself personally am going with binary search if the amount of data I can expect is huge.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So one more thing, inline declaration, what we do, so does like previously we used to clear all work area, internal table like that. So currently we don't need to clear
No.
this inline declaration.
So this syntax ideally clear the information first and then populate those. So that is
Yeah.
how the system behaves.
So that
Internal clearation
value,
is there.
the value keyword.
Yeah, the value keyword, right? If
Okay.
you want to preserve those, then you have to do some extra effort, but clearing is by default.
Okay. Okay. Fine. Yeah. Got it. Okay. Thank you, Sumit.
Okay, yeah, welcome. Yeah, I guess if we don't have anything, then we can close this session. See you all tomorrow at the
So
same time.
one more last question. Like
Uh-huh.
existing, when we have a table with well-defined data types,
Mhm.
so it automatically create index for each field, right? What to say, um,
Yeah,
referring.
so you don't need with default key at that particular point in time, I
So
think.
this will work when we go to for ANA this thing database. What if we upgrade from ECC like Oracle database to ANA database? As you said, we have to do some query changes in the program level and notes and all we have to check. So in the table level, if we already have some tables which are not well defined, like that will be as it
So
is that we can.
first of all, table would always have a primary key. Otherwise, you might not be able to activate the table. That was there before HANA as well.
Correct.
Keys would be there first. Secondly, let's just say if you are having any sort of secondary index defined on that table earlier, and now you are
Mm-hmm.
shifting on HANA database, then those index won't be considered because
Mm-hmm.
ultimately all of the columns would get indexed afterwards. So of course, those index
Okay.
would be there, but that won't be of any use. That would
So, but
stay
mhm. So, but when okay, it automatically converts others also as index.
as an index, right?
So, if any data type with the string one, that will be anyway we will be having like it can't be compressed some warning messages.
Yeah, definitely, because the data can't be compressed.
Okay, okay. So that automatically converts to index for all the fields when we
E-
go to AMA. Okay,
Exactly, yeah.
okay, fine. Yeah, got it. Thank you.
Clear? Okay, perfect. Yeah. Yeah, I guess then we can close the session. See you all tomorrow at the same time. Okay. See you. Bye bye.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Bye.